Peace and respect to you all. Welcome to Demolished Doctrine, the beginning of the end of superstitious religions. Tonight's special guest is going to be one generally specific who wants to talk about a very specific part of the Bible. Generally specific, the floor is yours, sir. And AFK, perfect timing. All right. So we're going to be talking about the 144,000. That is from the Bible, of course. And are they just men? Is it only 144,000 that go to heaven? What is the deal, man? Peace and respect. Welcome, Brick Jonesey.
What's up, brother, man?
It's the direction opposite the core of the planet. And if you were in outer space, for instance, the only direction you could say is up is over your head. And that kind of makes no sense. No harder questions, huh? Okay. So, Brick,
How's it going?
You want to give us? Could you look up the verse for the 144,000 from the Book of Revelation, please?
Yeah. Let me see. I do believe he said it was in 14. Got it right here. I have it in my my translation. Not going to tell you which one, but for those of you who might know, you'll know. It says 14:1. Then I saw, and look, the Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 who have his name and the name of his Father written on their foreheads. Excuse me.
And that is all. That's all it has to say about them.
Oh, I can go on. Yeah, sure.
Please do go on. Yeah.
It says, I heard a sound coming out of heaven like the sound of many waters and like the sound of loud thunder. And the sound that I heard was like singers who accompany themselves by playing on their harps. And they are singing what seems to be a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and the elders. And no one was able to master that song except the 144,000 who have been bought from the earth. These are the ones who did not defile themselves with women. In fact, they are virgins. These are the ones who keep following the Lamb, no matter where he goes. These were bought from among mankind as first fruits to God and to the Lamb, and no deceit was found in their mouths. They are without blemish.
Very good.
Is that good?
Okay. That is good right there. That is good.
All right.
Okay. So you would be free, of course, to give your understanding and interpretation, exegesis of that set of verses you just read.
All right, sure. So from my understanding, of course, 144,000 being the number, they are those who have not defiled themselves. And when that defiling, what it's talking about with women. It says, in fact, they are virgins. Now, my understanding is that when it talks about women in this context, it's not physical women. It's women as in religion. And with that, they are not defiling themselves with false beliefs.
Interesting.
That's pretty much the gist of that part for me.
So you associate this at least loosely to something like the Whore of Babylon.
In fact, that is exactly what I associate it to.
All right. I think I understand you, man. Good.
Cool.
All right. I'm just saying hi to everybody in the chat. Peace and respect to you all. I want you to know that you are welcome here. And for those of you who haven't been here several times, I want you to know that I want to be fair. I want to be corrected where I'm wrong. I want to know where I'm thinking of something poorly. I want to listen to what you have to say. I want you to be heard. And I hope that this show will be engaging enough that all of you inside chat are on topic and not bored. If you would be so kind, if you think that there's value in these talks, I would appreciate it if you would pet the algorithm as it so desires. You don't need me to tell you how. All right. Generally, are you back? Something must have happened on the home front. Imagine a guy asking to have a show and requesting a topic, and then he doesn't show up. I'm just teasing. It's fine. Okay. Although I do prefer to go last in these discussions.
Right. Well, if you'd like, I could go on a little
Retorted
bit about.
Yes, please feel free. Have the
Okay.
floor. It's yours.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so it also mentions here. Well, let's start with the first verse. It talks about that John, the revelator, the one who received the revelation, it says that he saw and look, right? So it's referring to him. He's actually seeing this thing happen before his eyes. And he saw the Lamb. And with the Lamb was the 144,000.
Right.
And then, of course, where? There's a location. It talks about Mount Zion. So my understanding of this is that Mount Zion being the place of worship, right? Those 144,000, they're there with him. And Mount Zion, from my understanding, is the holy city, but not the holy city that used to be, but rather the new holy city, which
And
is
by
to come.
that, you mean the heaven.
Right. Well, so sort of. It is in heaven.
It's a part of heaven.
Right. Exactly.
You know, I agree with you. Actually, I do agree with you. That Zion or high mountain. You may not know this. Most people don't care about the definitions of the Hebrew words, but I dearly love them. They bring such clarity if studied. Like the advice to Timothy, make yourself a good student, properly dividing the word. And that includes a lot of research. The definition of the word mountain in Mount Zion or Mountain Zion is a looming mountain from which someone looks down upon us. Did you know that?
I did not know the full definition, but that is not surprising.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, if you dig in the etymology of the word, it's not just mountain. It's not that simple. It's the idea of someone being up on the mountain looking down at you as God. Yeah, necessarily.
Right.
So context matters. Very interesting stuff. And the Hebrew had a very malleable language, kind of like German, where they could do compound words and stuff. And sometimes the translations that we receive in English in the United States are actually a little bit loose, and they don't give the depth that should be there. They just give the most recent variant or the final form, and they give only the definition of that, and they don't tell you what it means really.
Right. Yeah.
which is sad and really
It
a
is sad.
disservice to anybody reading it.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a slight lack of direction.
Yeah, in your rendering, Revelation
Mm-hmm.
14:1, and the King James renders it, and I looked. Right,
Gotcha.
but your translation rendered it slightly differently. What was that?
Then I saw.
Then I saw. Oh well, it's a gosh, it's a little bit better in some ways, and it's no better in other ways. Let me tell you why.
All right.
The Hebrew idea of light, like daylight, and the
Mm-hmm.
idea of seeing is not the way that we look at it in the United States. In the United States, we look at seeing as like my eyes worked.
So it would
Well,
be more like in my view or according
no,
to. No?
not in Hebrew. In Hebrew, it's not just I saw it or I looked. It's actually I understood it. It's not just casual glancing at something. It's seeing it in its depth and understanding.
So really like
So
a taking it in.
right,
Gotcha.
I'm back.
really big. Ha ha ha.
The man of
Oh,
the
no
hour.
play makes Jack a very dull boy. How much did you catch generally?
I was listening to most of it.
Right, but you were
Mount Zion sounds an awful lot like Mount Olympus to me.
actually yes. No,
As
that's a
in
great association, as in where the gods live.
as in so I have a theory behind that, and it's actually a measurement that I have a theory on, but of course this isn't the chapter for it. But I guess I could go ahead and speak about
We'll
it a
touch
little
on
bit.
it. Yeah.
Olympus, but Olympus, which Olympus? Mount Olympus, because there is specifically a Mount Olympus. It's called Olympus Mons.
Right.
Do you know Olympus Mons?
I believe it's on Mars.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. It's got an interesting measurement.
What is that?
It is exactly 1,000 miles less the distance of the measurement of the new holy city, New Jerusalem.
Which is 1,500 miles or 12,000 furlong.
Yeah, well, yeah, because they actually have a literal measurement. But yeah, it's 1,000 miles less.
Okay.
It's an interesting measurement.
There's an interesting. Sometime I'd love to talk about Mars in the Bible, because whoever wrote this knew things that the people of the time and place literally could not have known. Like interesting stuff. In fact, it does that with a few of our inner solar system hard rocky planets. Okay, so generally, take the floor.
It's almost like we were dropped off from Mars as a penal colony, like how Britain got rid of its jails and dropped people off in Australia.
Okay. And we're going to be food. But anyway, what do you think about Revelation 14 here?
I like turtles.
Yeah.
Hey,
like
if I'm food, can I be a cricket?
So, sorry, I'm filling my face with some.
I just want to be able to jump
cinnamon
and
toast
fly.
crunch right now.
Ooh, yeah, that's good stuff.
So I don't think we're at to the part where I'm really trying to engage yet. I think it's 14:3 is where I'm looking at it, and then after that, but I don't really have. So, actually, let's go back 14:1. So it occurred to me, I found this to be very interesting. In 14:1, it said, "And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on the mountain of Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written on their foreheads." Now, do you not find that interesting? How these are the ones that are worthy, right? Versus those who are going to take the mark on their hand and the forehead. So even the devil tries to mimic and mock that which God creates and says is good and use it for
True.
his own purpose. So is that where that comes from?
Yes, the Satan is imitating the idea of the mark in the forehead.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look into it, a lot of these conjunctions are made up, but some of them are not. There's a big difference between in the forehead and on the forehead. And Satan's mark is on the forehead, whereas God's mark is in the forehead.
Now, what does that mean? Is that like a Neuralink?
No, but you're on the right track. It has to do with your beliefs and the things that your gray matter, the stuff that's behind your forehead.
Okay, so sorry. I'm almost done with this cereal. So it's interesting. I've posited before that I feel like your brain is your soul, the heart is the spirit, and your flesh is your flesh. And what's up, Space Miner? Good to see you. And Dom, good to see you. And hey, chat, good to see you. Von Eric, good to see you. A lot of friendly faces out there. Really
Right
good
on.
to see you. I'm glad to be back in this chat again. So when we are called to deny our flesh and pick up our cross daily to stay in the spirit, to follow the heart, right? That's where the scripture is written. Our head is constantly being pulled towards the flesh or towards the heart, right? The heart wants us to choose it. The flesh wants the soul to choose the flesh. And depending on which way our head turns, whether it's towards the heart or towards the flesh, will determine, what state of grace we're in, what state of perfection we're in. Like I had this interesting conversation, and I can get to it later, but I had this, and I really would like to talk about this at some point in time. I had this very interesting conversation with a watchtower. I think those are Jehovah's Witnesses,
Right.
right outside of the courthouse, and they're often there. Like, so this is the second time I've been to that court and seen them there, within the last 4 months. So I'm guessing they show up there whenever there's court. I mean, nothing like praying on the downtrodden that need Jesus than someone that's afraid that they're going to go to jail and die, or get a pink sock like Chris Ryder's got coming to him probably. So that said, the interesting thing is I had a conversation with them, and they didn't really like the fact that I said that that they said that there was. I said what happened to, because they were talking about no one's perfect. I said, no, there was one who was perfect. She goes, no, actually, there were two that are perfect. Adam. And I said, well, he didn't stay perfect, so he wouldn't be qualified as perfect. He was created perfect and then sinned, right? And he wasn't on earth. He was actually in Eden. She's like, oh, so you don't think that Eden was on earth? I'm like, no, ma'am, I really don't. And she's like, wow. She kind of like, like staring at me and mocking and scoffing kind of thing. And I'm like, all right, she was like really having a bad time trying to hide that. And then so I proceeded. I kind of blew that off and ignored her. As far as like her sneering. And I said to her, I said, okay, so then once we established that Adam wasn't perfect, because she said no one was perfect, I said, well, then why was Moses described as a man perfect in his time? So was Noah. And she's like, do you think that meant he was perfect, like had no flaws whatsoever? I said, but complete. That's what it meant, complete. And I'm just like, and she's like, well, we can't stop sinning. We can't stop sinning. I said, ma'am, if you tell me you can't stop sinning, I believe you. Well, you can't stop sinning either. I said, now hold on, ma'am.
Yes, you could. It's just really hard to maintain.
It is. It's incredibly hard, but you have to deny your flesh, pick up your cross daily.
That's correct.
And you can be perfect in Christ, who strengthens me daily.
So I have a little bit of pushback for you, GS, since you mentioned this.
I know you would, you sinner.
Well, I don't disagree with the concept of everybody sins. Now, I don't believe that we sin constantly. I do believe that we are able to do better every day.
So, like, you only stab your mother in the face like every third Thursday of the month. So, therefore,
well, what do you consider a sin?
Not a sin to have a thought, but you have to take that thought captive.
Right.
Failing to take that thought captive and acting out on that sin means you separate yourself from God.
So So can you pinpoint down all the different various sins?
Well, sin is sin.
Right.
Oh, Richard, did I hear you correctly when you said that you haven't sinned in over a decade?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I believe you.
Okay. So
Maybe you should have this query with Richard, because guess what? I am not without sin. I'm
He
not.
just believes that theoretically you could go a really long time without sinning.
well,
Mhm.
I know that we're on the Revelation 14 stuff, and it's very
Sure.
important to stay to topic as much as possible. But I do want to put this out there, and just because this is my view, that only God Himself has the ability to read the heart, right? So if I say that I have not sinned,
Mhm.
then I am taking credit where it is not mine. That's just me. So that's the way that I see it.
And I believe you.
So I can't read my
I
own
would be
heart.
taking credit that is not mine. And could I steel man that by saying something like,
Mhm.
I owe this to Christ, thereby
Mm-hmm.
I have no claim.
There it is.
There you go. Perfect. And you know what?
That good? Yeah.
That is how we reach perfection relatively.
Then do it.
Oh, I do my best.
Oh, hey, yeah.
I do
You're
my
right there with
best.
me. You're right there with me, Jonesy.
Yeah, I do my best.
You're right there, me going. I'm a knucklehead. Why don't I just do
Mhm.
it?
But
Yeah.
would you really want that kind of, I don't know, conviction? I mean,
Well,
are you sure?
I think once you're baptized, whenever you sin, you
Mhm.
do feel something. You're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that,
Right.
and it grieves the Holy Spirit, and that's the repentance.
Right.
And at
Right.
that moment, that's why I'm saying, when Jonesy says, "Only God knows my heart," yeah, and when he convicts your heart in that moment through the Holy Ghost, you know God saw what you did. You know God knows what you did, and that's the time to repent. So
And
God does know your heart, and guess what? If you're paying attention and you have ears to hear and eyes to see, you'll know your heart too.
and we may not have, or I should say, I may not have committed a major sin, right? But my
Sin is sin.
right sin is sin, right? So there is the one major sin, right? And then there are some very egregious sins, and then there are some sins that are just little, oopsies, right? But they're all sins, right? And so to pretend like that I couldn't have possibly sinned, it's just, to me, it just seems a little conceited.
Mhm.
But that's me.
Okay, so back to the topic.
And this does tie into the topic though, because we're about to get
It
into
does.
it. But go ahead.
Yep.
It does. So here in Revelation 14 at the beginning, normally God says it is good that we multiply and subdue the land. That's a pretty standard thing for God to say, yeah? Here, it's seen as not advantageous for some reason. Would either of you like to speak about that?
In which one are we addressing?
In the
14:3 is
144,000 being literal virgins. This is one of the 5 places the Bible actually troubles itself to give a definition for what it means so there can be no confusion. By virgins, it means they never laid with a woman.
right. So
So
I'm
sorry, who is it? It's the Mormons who say that if they live a pure enough life and are baptized and do whatever rituals, they become virgins again. Sorry, no.
so go ahead, Brick.
Yeah, well, I was curious on the translation. So what you're saying is that it's literally translated as actual uh, male virgins in the physical form.
I'd be more than happy to go through it word by word with you.
Okay.
Okay, so here in Revelation 14, the word man, let's check that out because it's referring to them as men, or else that negation makes no sense. Of course, we are talking about the Greek here, which is not of Greek religion. And sometimes right here, you'll find that it actually is based in a Hebrew word, which is preferable because then you know the intent of the etymology of the word. We don't have that advantage here. So don't forget we're talking about early Christianity.
Hey, pardon my interruption, Richard. I just want to give people context. I'm not sure if you actually read my query, and you're so gracious enough as a host to have actually opened up the possibility for this dialogue, even though there might have been more pressing and important things on your mind. So did you let people know the text message that I sent to you? Otherwise, I can just read it real briefly to give people kind of like they'll
I missed
understand
it
why.
completely. Would you read it?
Sure. So the text message, no, this was like a week ago. This was on August 29th. I sent this to you. I said, by the way, a topic I would love to dig into is Revelation 14, particularly why the 144,000 are all men and virgins, and it describes women seemingly as a defiling element. Is that a statement that men not in the presence of women are virtuous, whilst women are the element that do Satan's work? The snake, after all, approached Eve and not Adam. So that's where
Right.
my query was.
I remember that now. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, no. It's situational. Obviously, it's a good thing that you brought other children of God into this world, you and your wife. That's obviously a good thing. After all, if that never happened, there'd be no human race at all. Okay, so it's obviously a good thing. However, there is, and this is exactly what I want to drive at, is get you guys to answer it yourselves that I don't even tell you. But there are certain scenarios where you want a male and you want them to be a virgin. Okay, so this is the definitive negation, not even one man, woman, or thing. Okay, so when it reads no man, that's a good translation. Okay. And then the next verse, the word virgins here, which I do not memorize any of the Greek because it's rather irrelevant, actually. More importantly, is what did early Christians mean? That's the really pertinent question. A maiden, by implication, an unmarried daughter, a virgin.
Parthenius.
Okay? Yeah. All right. So yeah, it means virgin. Fair enough.
So could it?
Well, hold on though, because it says in that case a virgin would be classified as a daughter, not a son.
Yes, and
So
actually,
that
not to
could
make an excuse, but that could be quite loose. After all, the entire population is referred to as a bride.
right, but still, so the 144 could have included females
No, it can't, and there's very specific reasons why.
because men rule and girls rule. Roger, got it.
No,
No.
actually,
Okay.
I think I can make a pretty strong case for if you were selecting an army. There's certain things you want them to be capable of, and there's certain things you want them to be incapable of. For instance, as the 144,000 follow the Lamb wherever he should go, should they have night emissions? And by that, it means sexual emissions. They will be pushed out of camp for the night as a punishment because, well, frankly, their head's not in the game. Their head is somewhere else.
What does that mean? Like a wet dream?
Yes, this is exactly what it means. So this idea of them being virgins and inexperienced is to the advantage of the military in their military efforts for very real reasons. A man who has had the pleasure of a woman is more likely to want the pleasure of a woman again, whereas a man who has not had that might have, I don't know, loose dreams of it or whatever, but without the experience, it's not the same thing.
So my thing about this whole thing, right? So this is a revelation, okay? And throughout the whole thing, short of whenever it was talking about the seven churches and the things that they needed to correct. The rest of the book the rest of the Revelation talks about illustrations, right? And so that's why I look at this and I say, this sounds more like an illustration of what they are in regards to that they haven't defiled themselves with things that aren't true belief. So it sounds to me more like it's a illustration, because he's receiving a vision. Mm-hmm. And it's not to be taken like the literal, this is exactly like, because if you're imagining God's form and all of that, like it's describing God, it's describing the holy city. These things are being described in illustration. So this too.
So what do you think? Do you think this is like maybe angelic mental imaging that was representative of the actuality, and he was not witnessing the actuality?
Like a comic book?
Or a movie that John saw?
Like doing acid.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, that's a horrible way to say it. That's really discrediting. Can't we say something like he was given a vision of it and it wasn't physical?
I know it's a horrible
let's
way
not
to
call
put
it
though.
a trip.
Yeah, we're getting the Joe Rogan kind of vibe going on here. None your business. Can you highlight none your business? Will you can I respond to that real quick?
Which one? Grow up and reproduce?
It's that one. Grow up and reproduce. It says be fruitful first, then multiply. Well, fruitful, if the connotation is only, I mean, you'll know them by their fruits. For a good tree can only bring forth good fruit, and an evil tree can only bring forth evil fruit, right? So being fruitful, and so I like what you're saying. It's, in other words, go forth, be fruitful, show your fruits, then multiply. But by that connotation, it would seem that you're only referring to have good fruit and then go forth, be fruitful and multiply. But we know that many, many evil people are out there just popping babies out left and right. So, but I mean, I like the thought of that, none you biz, but we have to understand that to bear fruit can be good and bad. True? Or your thoughts on that?
If I had to guess what he meant, because that's very few words actually, I would say he meant something like, make sure you have a good job and a house and a nest, then have babies.
Yeah.
Something like that. He's a pretty practical dude.
So basically what I'm saying is I'm trying to view this from the creator's perspective, not from man's perspective, right? Because if we view it from man's perspective, yes,
right.
we're going to
materialistic, yeah.
Right, and from a sexual point of view and that sort of thing. But if we view it from a creator's perspective, right, these things that like them being virgin, right? If it's from a man's perspective in a physical form, then it's inconsequential. But if it's from a creator's perspective, then perspective is the thing, how we view. So how he views. So our view, if it's in line with his view, if our belief lines up with what he sees, then we, or not we, but these individuals are not defiled by any other points of view, by any other beliefs. They believed every bit of it the whole time they were alive.
Can you help me understand what you're saying? A lot of words, but I don't really understand the point of what you're saying. Like, and I'm not trying to be obtuse with you or rude or anything. I'm just, it's going over my head.
Yeah, not at all. So with the different nations, with the different religions and all the belief systems, right? So we have people who believe in a nationalistic point of view. That's where, Nazi Germany came from, because they believed in that race stuff, right? So it's all about these different beliefs, and even Babylon. And see, that's why Babylon here is referenced, because Babylon was a free people. The only thing you had to do to be free was to, whenever the king came through, you fall down and worship the king. That's the way it was in Babylon. And then once you did that, you could be free to do whatever you want. You literally could do whatever you want. And so that belief in that king or that ruler is God himself.
So I'm still failing to understand how this attaches to what we're talking about. How does that apply to
virgin? To virgin, as in virgin to any other belief system.
so bowing before a man king? How does that reflect on like virginity, though? I mean, I don't understand.
Well, if you fall to worship any other god at any point in your time of being alive, then you're no longer a virgin to God.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm understanding.
You picking up? What I'm putting down?
Interesting. Okay. Now it's clicking. Thank you very much, Brick, for explaining that.
No problem. Yep, and that's my view of it.
Okay, so in order as you came in, the floor is yours, Nunya. You said you had something?
Greetings from the thriving metropolis of Omaha, Nebraska. Good to see all you gorgeous people. Richard, yeah, we got to talk sometime about your dream. Completely different topic, some other time. I just have 2 cents. I think there is nowhere ever in the history of mankind of a male virgin. It's always meant female. And in the Torah, I'm Hebrew roots, so we think the written Torah is important. We try to follow that. Nowhere in the written Torah are you defiled by being with a woman, except during a couple different times. So to try to say that these are males, number one, and then say they're getting defiled by women. Even Paul says the marriage bed is holy and sacred or something, but the fornication, like the other gentleman was talking about, going to a different god, that could be a symbolic thing. But if it's women, what's this defiled by woman? So I think I'm 100% sure it's little girls, virgins, who are not defiled by womanhood. They have not had their menarche yet. That's my 2 cents. Good luck, brothers, sisters.
No, I mean it's interesting that you say that, but as Richard rightly pointed out, we're all considered the bride. He's the bridegroom, we're the bride.
Yeah, I as a straight male, that kind of grosses me out. So that really has to be symbolic.
It
I
is
do
symbolic, of
understand.
course.
I mean, it would have to be. But there is a consummation. He's getting married. He has a son in Psalm 2. He's getting married in Psalm 45. Are we the queen on his right hand, adorned in the gold of Ophir? Or are we out in the audience with the daughter of Tyre bringing gifts?
Now you're onto something. That's a good point. Are we on that side? Are we on that side, or are we with him?
Right, because quite honestly, Abraham's singular seed promise, there is also a plural seed promise. Like if you can number the stars, that's going to be your seed. But specifically, there is one seed, Jesus, that we're looking forward to. So if we think his seed is going to have a whole bunch of seeds like the sand of the sea, no, it's going to be, we are all going to have Jesus in us, his spirit in us. So we will be like the stars, that way, that like John 1:1 says through 18, we are now begotten of the Father. He's our brother. So this whole marriage thing, I mean, like to me, the Song of Solomon, that whole very physical, sexual, passionate book of the Bible that so many think are God and us, I quite frankly think is God and his wife, the Holy Spirit, who gave
Actually,
birth
I do too.
who gave birth to Jesus at Genesis 1:3. Well, how much the light? What? It's so obvious to me. But no, I just wanted to point that out about the 144,000. I think they have to be little girls, virgins, who are not quote unquote defiled by women. You know what I
Let me
mean?
ask you a follow-up question.
Yeah.
If they are young women, girls, you said, and by girls you would mean less than the age of accountability. So I'm thinking something between able to walk and 13. You agree with
Well,
that?
they're menarche. If you have to look that up, maybe it's too technical, but they're menarche. I wouldn't say the age of accountability, because that in Exodus we see that the children that did not know good from evil were up to 20 years old. But I would say her first period, yes, they are
Well,
not, because that's when a
okay,
woman gets
so
defiled. That's her
still
first
something
defilement.
about 11 to 13 years old, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, fine. What good does it do to teach them a new song and strengthen their right hand?
Because they don't know any different. They're going to follow him wherever he goes. And I think
Right. But what are
140,
they doing for him?
what are they doing for him?
Yes.
I
What
I
is the
think
purpose in what is otherwise
We're getting ready to go to
called?
battle.
Yes, they're going to battle. That's what they do. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think God is selecting for 13-year-old girl soldiers.
I do. I do.
well, and
Well, you're welcome to think that,
this is
but
after
I promise you,
resurrection.
you won't be part of it.
Look,
It's
God
part
is
of the
trans. God
resurrection,
is
isn't it?
trans. He's trans now.
No,
No, I mean, this is
definitely
after the
not.
resurrection, right? We all have our eternal bodies.
well, as we read along,
This
there
is
actually is more to what they will be doing too. By
And
the
I
this
way,
is
think they
after,
save. Don't
to
they
your point,
save people?
Nunya. This is
Oh, go
after
ahead.
the first resurrection, which is not including either the resurrection of Christ or the second resurrection.
Goodness. Now I'm really confused. But
So,
no, it's good. I like it.
well,
Go ahead.
there's specifically 3 resurrections in the Bible. There's Christ, you know of that, of course. There's
And
the
then there's
first
two first.
resurrection, which is apparently a large majority of people or a large body of people. And then there's some who don't believe who linger on, thus the plagues, the testimony, the time of the army of God, what you would call the second coming. Well, the second coming isn't coming to nobody, is it? I mean, you don't think that.
I'm here. Cricket sounds. No, he's here
Right.
for
Right,
many.
because there's still people. That's the second resurrection, is them coming to belief and ascending. That's the second resurrection.
So where's your Revelation 14 in between those guys, or after or before? What are you saying?
Well,
Where the chronology?
chronologically in the book of Revelation, we have Revelation 14 before those things happen, chronologically, but not literarily. Okay? So
I
it
thought in two.
indicates the time. It indicates what time it's referring to, and this is the beginning of the second resurrection. Go ahead, sir.
yes,
The Revelation 2, where Exodus 19, he promises us to make us priests and kings, and in Revelation 2, we are priests and kings. So I'm not sure of the chronology of your Revelation.
Yeah, but you're still referring back to those already believing when you say that, which is fine. It's just not full.
Yeah, I think there's 5 resurrections. Christ, the 2 first fruits. There's the first fruits, but there's 2 first fruits. Those at his coming, and then the end resurrection. But
That's fine. It doesn't change the argument.
right, so the 144,000 is the one. I'm sorry to, but just please for me one more time, is where in your chronology? This Revelation 14.
It's apparently they're employed right at the beginning of the halftime show and into the second and third. I'm sorry, third and fourth quarters.
So they can't be killed anyway.
Can we pause real quick, because I just want to point out, gay 26-year-old Wrangler's son Ted Wrangler is alluding to pedophilia in the chat. Maybe we can caution him or deal with that, because I'm really getting sick and tired of that.
I would be happy to. Thank you very much for pointing that out. You're right. I was not paying attention.
And I'm really getting sick and tired of the innuendos.
So here's the idea. We are trying to have serious conversation both inside chat and on panel. You are, of course, welcome on panel. Everyone is. However, these kinds of innuendos and non-progressive, off-topic things are not going to be tolerated. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do, Wrangler. I'm going to ask you to exit and change your name to something that is not, I don't know, suggestive, and then come back in and stay on topic. And if you can't manage those 2 requests, then you can see yourself to the door. Or if you can't see yourself to the door, I'll ask a moderator to assist you to the door. But I don't like doing that. I'd rather you were involved in a great conversation. First thoughts, Batman. Who is AFK?
Yeah, he might be on break.
Oh, nope, he's back. Hold on.
Nice.
Okay, now. Okay, we'll get back to you. Theological, first thoughts.
About the 144,000. Aren't all the spots taken?
My bad.
That was my first thought about this when I read it in the Bible. All the spots are taken, aren't they? 144,000 people. There's 8 billion.
We're going to
of us
get into
now.
that. At the end of the book of Revelation, I'm going to point out mathematical quotes there that you can actually work out, and it tells you how to do the math. And I promise you, we are not limited going to having 144,000. Batman, now that you got your microphone working.
Yeah, thank you. So what I glean from it, all it is just essentially the people who have already been justified and glorified. To me, that's what it read like. Like these are people who are already in perfected states that are essentially just glorifying God. As far
From
as
all of the history of the earth? From where?
I don't remember it suggesting where they were from, but they were plucked from the earth.
Well, it
I'm
does
not
say
necessarily sure.
they were redeemed from amongst men. It does read that.
Yeah. Maybe they're saints. I don't know. But that's what it seems like to me, at least when I first read that. I never looked into it any deeper than that.
I would ask everyone on panel and inside chat, you know the story of Christ from, well, all of the New Testament. What's the name of the ones that follow him wherever he goes?
Disciples.
Right.
Yeah, disciples, yeah.
These are the disciples that are being spoken of.
And of course, that would be the first ones. His first disciples will most likely be.
This is what I think. Why it's 144,000? Because it divides by 12 easily.
Well, so here's the interesting thing about that, though, Richard. So when the statement is that follow him wherever he goes, where is Christ currently?
Where is Christ? If you're asking me, the Father is in heaven. The Christ is to do his job. If
to the
we are
right-hand
close
side
to
of the
end
throne,
times,
right?
the Christ is on this earth alive somewhere.
I thought the Antichrist was.
No, the Antichrist just a couple years older, but also alive on this earth somewhere.
Okay, so but according to the Bible, until the day of his coming, no man will know the time or the hour. He will come as a thief in the night.
That's correct.
Right? Absent that,
and
sans that, he's at the right hand of the throne of God.
Yeah.
So that would necessitate that the 144,000 who follow him wherever he goes are also in heaven at the right hand of Jesus, who's at the right hand of God.
He wanders amongst the lampstands that are the menorah that's in front of the throne room as well, and he stood up at Stephen. Let's not forget those parts.
That's true, and not to add to the difficulty of this, but one of the reasons I believe there's an intended reader, all the rest of us can just argue about it, is because of the complexity of this. They learn a new song. In your view, generally, how long have they been in heaven? They didn't know this song.
Well, how long would it take God to download a new song if he wanted you to learn a new song?
It doesn't matter how long it takes.
Go ahead. What do you mean?
It doesn't matter. I mean, you suggested it could be something instantaneous. I agree with you. That'd be fine.
Yeah. So then what would be the point of...
speaking to the immediacy of the change, saying they just learned a new song.
Well, no. Did they just learn a new song?
Well, it says they learned a new song. That's the point.
Right, that no one else could sing.
Right.
Maybe that's the song of having been without sin and being man and not the Christ.
but you do see it as a change. Learned.
No. Well, I
Maybe
go ahead.
maybe the
I don't
reason
know the
why it
answer to
couldn't
that.
be maybe the reason why it couldn't be sang was because or is because it has God's actual name in it.
Oh.
Because if it says that his name is written on their foreheads and then they're singing a song that no one else
Not
can
normal.
learn, then maybe it's because the song includes his name.
It's
Oh,
actually
don't-
in their forehead, and that's important. If you'll forgive me, I'm sorry. It seems like a
Yeah.
distraction.
That's what I glean from it anyways. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't even begin to think to know the answer of it. That's kind of why I wanted everyone's opinion on it, because it was just, I mean, I kind of can't get past the fact that I still don't think there's been a good answer to if they follow Jesus wherever he goes. You're saying they're only the disciples that have been on earth that followed him around. And I'm not saying that that's not part of it or necessarily the end of it. But also, I mean, when the Bible says something definitively, then it means definitively. I don't know. Somebody's got some background music going on.
It's Theo,
Um,
but he's a nice guy.
oh, he's a super nice dude. So the interesting thing for me is like it either means what it means or it doesn't mean what it means.
It does
So
mean
what-
what it means.
So then wherever he goes is that if he's currently at the right hand of God in the throne, near to the right of the throne,
Right.
then that's where they are.
Right. There are arguments that need to be had preceding this, and I'm sorry we're not doing it in order, but as the situation as it is,
Mm-hmm.
I believe the Bible also when it says what Christ will be called, and that includes that he will be called Prince of Peace, that he will be called Wonderful Counselor. Yes, I put a comma there. Wonderful Counselor, Prince of Peace. But what people don't want to think about is Everlasting Father. See, I do believe that the Bible is telling the truth when it says there's an everlasting Father and Jesus becomes an everlasting Father. He doesn't dethrone the other one. It's not like that. They're equals. He gets his own throne at God's right hand and he becomes everlasting Father.
Right.
Well,
Now-
just a tiny little pushback. Not quite equal. But yes,
enough.
I understand what you're saying.
Fair enough. Okay. And like the book of Revelation says, and I'm sorry we're not doing this in order again, but like the book of Revelation says, I will give to him that overcomes as my Father gave to me. That's 3 individual persons, all of which will be at some point at the right hand of God in a throne, dressed in white, wearing a crown. Now, I don't know why Christians tend to want to think that though the earth is a good thing to do with children of God on it, God would do it only one time. But they tend to think that. Maybe it's pride, maybe it's ignorance. I don't really know. It depends on the individual, really. But what the Bible is claiming, as far as I can understand, is that this has happened before. There's nothing new under the sun. And this will happen again. So even though you're right that Christ would be at the right hand of the Father and in heaven, that doesn't mean that Christ can't also be, that being a job description, on the earth giving his testimony with his 144,000.
Wouldn't that counteract what the Bible has said though?
About what?
Well, if no man would know the hour and the time and the coming,
Right. Except for the Father.
and apparently 144,000.
No, they wouldn't know either.
Well, you just got done saying he'd be sitting there talking to him.
No, what I believe this is saying is they will be on the earth with him, and when the halftime show comes, they will ascend. Michael will have his war in the heavens with his angels against Satan and his angels. Sorry, I'm typing.
It's okay.
And that's the halftime show. And then you have the second resurrection, the people who didn't believe, the people who stayed behind because they chose to, free will being respected, what limited free will, whatever we might have. In which case, there's a need for the second showing of Christ. People call it the second coming. But the Bible never suggests it's a second coming. In fact, it says two dichotomous. I mean, truly, it's a true dichotomy that Jesus shows up in the clouds and every knee will bow, every eye will see, and also that he shows up as a thief in the night. Well, that's totally plausible if it's two different persons.
So that's my rub, I think, on this because
sorry.
Well, my rub on it is if it's not in the Bible, then why are we editorializing? I mean, if we're just speculating, that's one thing.
What part of that
but
isn't in the Bible?
Well, you just said it's not specifically written in the Bible that this has been done multiple times, but yet you're
it is
positing
indicated
that.
in every way. It is indicated in every way. Hebrews 1, Hebrews 10, with these invisible things God so made the worlds, that the special promises to Christ are that he will sit at the right hand of the Father, be dressed in white, given his own throne, given a crown which he owes to God. There's 24 of them doing it. I mean, the plants and animals were maintained off planet before this planet was completed, and there was no man to till the earth. Chapter 2, verse 3 of Genesis. And I mean, I could just keep going like that. So, no, that the phrase I used isn't in the Bible, but it is all throughout the Bible, the indicators of this.
So, General, I want to clear something up for you real quick.
Sure.
So in the biblical prophecy, the idea at one point was that there are two messiahs or two versions of the Messiah. You have the suffering Messiah, the one who will be killed by his own people, the one who will be cut off, right? And then you have the king, the God King Messiah, or the Son of Man, who's going to come from the clouds and basically cast judgment on the earth, and he's going to bring forth everlasting peace, right? So far we have seen the suffering servant coming. So the first coming has happened already. In Revelation, when Jesus comes back down on the cloud, even during the period or before the period where the holy cities are built and they're protected from evil and stuff like that, right? That is the second coming that goes all the way up to when Christ now takes the role of the priest and the judge, and he reads the names in the book of life. So there's two comings, just like in the Bible there is two anointings of the king that takes place, right? Two anointments of Jesus. You have his anointment on earth, and you have his anointment in heaven. And you can glean from the Old Testament in various different chapters how the anointment in heaven will take place. And if you read really, really carefully, you will see how Christ's anointment on earth takes place when he comes as the suffering servant, right? So at first, he comes as a servant, right, to save. And the second time, he comes as a warrior king, right, to not just save, but to destroy evil. And if you look through a lot of the verbiage, you'll see certain things said, like a
There's a
sword.
lot of snapping. There's like a snapping. Is that your microphone?
It's Batman, but we're just going to live with it.
Okay. Yeah.
My bad.
There's
I don't
nothing
know
you
if
can
I
do
should.
about that.
Yeah, no, I mean it's I understand that there's going to be two comings.
Hmm.
I'm just trying to like deal with the actual passages that are in the Bible. I feel like we're throwing a lot of like secondary and tertiary things at instead of actually dealing with Revelations 14 piece by piece. I think we're all speculating a lot.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I'm more confused than ever whether or not being defiled with a woman as a woman is. I don't understand how that works.
So this, yeah,
Nunya's, yeah. Go ahead.
this is where I did want to bring it back, right? So because in verse 4 is where you're talking about 14:4. It talks about uh, that they did not defile themselves with women. In fact, they are virgins. Now it goes on to describe them a little bit more. It says, these are the ones who keep following the Lamb no matter where he goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's descriptive. Then it says, these were bought from among mankind as first fruits to God and to the Lamb. Now that's descriptive. And no deceit was found in their mouths. They are without blemish. Now that also is descriptive. And when I say descriptive, what I mean by that is illustrative, right? Because is Jesus a literal lamb? No, he's not, but he's described as a lamb, right?
Are you talking about hyperbole or metaphoric, or are you talking illustrate? Because when you say it's
Illustrative.
illustrative, that means that it's been drawn out or written out.
There's verbal illustration. It's fair.
Right. So it's like to paint a picture in your mind, because the way that a human mind visions,
Back to your
right?
point. Quit talking about illustrations.
Well, this is an illustration. And so because it's an illustration, uh, we see that Jesus is not a literal lamb. He's a spirit creature. He's also not a man. He was a man, but he became a spirit creature. And because he is envisioned as a lamb, we can gather that this is an illustrative purpose here. Now, in 5, it actually says that they were found, it says, no deceit was found in their mouths. Now, that is more pointed. There's no descriptors there, right? The only actual physical thing that you can see there is mouths. So even if it was descriptive, right, then what it's saying there to me is that they didn't say anything against, right? So their mouths weren't lying. And why? It's
Sorry.
because, and in the last part of 5, it says in that they are without blemish. That means they have no spots. They are virgins.
Well, which is in the Bible, it says that God's coming back for a church that's without spot nor wrinkle. So that's a good point. That's a good point.
Can I do you gentlemen a favor? Can you use the NIV or the ES? Use the NIV, because I don't like that King James shit, because all it does is make shit poetry and use unnecessary words that causes confusion.
Well,
I just read
I
that
have
same
good
passage
I have
in
good news for you that this is not even close to the King James version. Not
He
even
doesn't
close.
like to say what translation it is, but I do see the value of purchased rather than redeemed, because in the Hebrew culture, the word redeemed means to purchase back a brother or sister or cousin from some debt that they owed. So that's to say purchased refers to Christ's sacrifice for the people of the earth. And actually, I like
Yep.
that translation.
Yeah, it actually says bought, but it means the same thing. Yes, exactly. So that
Bought, sorry.
price is paid.
Yeah, I get that, but that's not the only reason or the
But it's
only
not the
part
King
of it.
James.
I mean, okay. I mean, the things that to me at least that I glean from it is that these people, these particular people, are in a fully justified and glorified state.
Right. Which happens where?
That can only happen in heaven.
Right. And since they're redeemed of men on this earth, and then they're in some kind of powerful state, their right hand is strengthened and they learn a new song, and then they follow the Lamb wherever he goes. But yet in the fifth trumpet, no one is going to go into heaven until the seas are emptied, the graves are emptied, and all that will be martyred are martyred. Then the only way to justify that in my rational mind is to say that they were the 144,000 are young men who are inexperienced, are physically healthy, believing in God, part of the first ascension, hand selected by Christ to be those disciples for his time of testimony, the second half or 3.5 years, the second half of 7 years of end times.
And I would actually like to bulwark
Yeah.
not only your argument, but also mine, because in order for them to be not defiled of any religions and belief systems, they would also have to be literal virgins, short of being married, right, in an actual marriage. Like, so most likely these are young men who probably have never been married, who've never defiled themselves with any other sort of belief system. They've always accepted that there is definitely a real God and that he is the true God and that sort of thing until the studies and all that. So they've always been seeking truth in that. And that's my view.
It's an interesting premise, but like if there are no other gods, then there's no other way to lose your virginity by not being with another god. If there is only one God, or the only one true God,
There is a God of this world.
right? Little g, though, right?
The little G's.
Well, you could say little g as an expression. The text doesn't differentiate it that way. It says that Satan's in charge, and yes, there are people who worship Satan either on purpose or by accident.
Yeah, and also
then,
themselves.
So then, how do we believe the Bible then?
What do you mean? How do we believe it?
So now I'm back to how do we believe that the Bible? Listen, if I was the God of this world, not a little g God, but the God of this world, and there was a book written about God, it'd be about me, and I'd be the hero.
But we have a
course,
more powerful God.
Oh.
You are making the ancient argument. You may be unaware. I think you are unaware that you're making the ancient argument of the demiurge, that the God of the Old Testament is actually the Satan.
Yeah, I don't know about the Old Testament or otherwise, but I think Baal and Moloch are definitely referred to in that, or Mammon. I think was.
Turns out recent excavations show that a Moloch is a form of a sacrifice never believed to be a god. It's the burning sacrifice.
Gotcha. With a cow or something like that, or a bull, right?
Well, there was also an owl. There were different forms of the statue that would hold the infant child as it died. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just made really silly points. So I'm sorry, gentlemen. Let's proceed.
I doubt that. No.
I feel lost in this.
Look, dude, you are trying to map out reality, and that's important because the fact of the matter is, the better our map of reality, the happier we are, and the easier things are for us. So I respect that working things out. Simultaneously, I apologize to you that there has been 2,000 years of rumor that have gone into Christian churches, and people have been teaching it to you.
Hear, hear.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's been teaching it to all of us, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, but we have the choice of rejecting it and following the advice of the Bible, leaning not upon our own understanding, following every word that issues out of the mouth of the Lord, that word Lord there meaning Father. We have that option.
Yeah,
I recommend it.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, I like to challenge people and say, when did you ever, as a biblical student, open up the Bible to the first sentence fragment in the first sentence, pray, and ask God what that meant? How many people actually do that? I think very seldom that happens.
Oh,
Yeah,
speaking of
I've never
which,
done it.
Richard, I finished another paper, the one about why was Jesus called Israel.
I want to bring it back to your first study because somehow I love you, Odin. I respect you. I know you know that, but you made a differentiation without a difference in your reckoning of the translation of the word. What was the exact? Hold on a second. Just give me a second. Order of Melchizedek. And you said, well, there's variations within the definition. I like the translation, etc., better. But then there was no difference. It still meant in the sameness of Melchizedek, and
No, no,
that
no,
is, I mean, I'm not being just pedantic. That's really important.
no. So the reason that part was added was because there were and still is large sects of Judaism and even some Christians who see order as like take for example the priests under Aaron, right? That would be like an order of priests.
Aaronic priests, yeah,
Yeah, right. Like
that would be an order. Yeah.
that's how they read the word order. Not they
Okay.
don't read it in the form of likeness. So
With
that's
that,
Right.
why
So
I
what would it
made
mean
that
to be in the
distinction.
likeness of someone who had no mother, no father, no lineage? What would that mean?
Basically, the likeness of God.
Yes.
right, and just so you know, that priesthood order is literally the same kind of meaning. Just so you know, I mean, like you're brilliant. I can see that. But that is literally the same type of order.
Right.
Yeah, but that 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 was not
But the overall
necessarily
point
known
is,
a lot.
does it have to mean only a singular person? Can it mean several people?
No, it can't be several people, mainly because like in Hebrews is it's really where it's fully flushed out. Because what Hebrews does is that Hebrews links Genesis. I don't remember the exact chapter, but it links Genesis it to a prophesying of David in the Psalms, right? To Isaiah, and he explained what the priesthood is supposed to be. How does one become a priest? Why we need priests and stuff like that, right? Now Melchizedek, as a priest, right? He's doing things that other priests do not have the authority to do. Not only that, the only other priest that is eternal, who's also a king, whose kingdom is a place of peace, is lo and behold, Jesus Christ. So that whole thing was flushed out in Hebrews. So that's why
I
in
agree.
my research
I
I
just
went from
read it
the.
differently.
I mean that's fine, but initially my thoughts was that it was a priesthood that comes from Seth, from Seth's line, but that was easily debunked in 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 um in the Psalms, and in Isaiah and in
Wait.
Hebrews.
You're telling me there's some part of the Bible that would debunk my present reading frame? Would you be more specific?
Um, Hold on, I gotta pull the document back up.
Okay. While you do that, Theo's been dying. Go ahead, Theo.
Yeah. So I was thinking about what we were talking about the other day with the Jupiter ignition thing, and I've come across a major problem. So you say you need it to go for 6 months. So you could definitely ignite Jupiter, but it lacks the mass to keep with the outward force of the push. The
You
push
know what?
from the
You're
outward
right. I
force of
did say
fusion.
6 months. You're
Yeah,
absolutely
you
right.
did.
But actually, it only needs to be seen by everybody.
So it just
And
needs to
that was
be
a dumb thing for me to say. Actually, I was thinking rotations, and I was thinking half a rotation around the sun. So I said 6 months. I should have said 24 hours
24. Yeah, you could do that
because
because the
everybody
problem.
would see it in 24 hours.
Yeah, 100%. Because the problem arises if you want to keep it going for a long period of time, you need that mass to hold the outward force from the fusion into the
True.
star. Yeah, and you don't even have enough mass in the entire solar system besides the sun to pull that off.
That's an excellent point. It's a great argument. You are right. I completely misspoke. I said something stupid.
But yeah,
So,
if you
can
only
I?
need it for a couple of days, you could do it with the chemical reaction and everybody would see that.
I mean, granting that the Earth isn't on the absolute total opposite side of the sun at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So how long does it take for light to reach Earth?
Approximately 8 minutes.
Yeah, 8 minutes.
Okay.
We are at 1 AU from the sun. Jupiter is at 5 AUs from the sun, so about 40 minutes.
So it'd be 32 minutes for the light to get from Jupiter to here.
If we were on the close end side, yes. If we're on the close side of our orbit, you got it. Yeah, that's right.
Who was the guy that said that he was looking at the moon with like some kind of optics, and then he saw like the hologram? He saw like a wave across the moon, as if it was just kind of like there was like a TV monitor. If you're looking at it with a different resolution camera, like a phone, how your TV camera has has like the lines going through it.
Well, I'm afraid that a lot of electronics have such effects, such anomalies in them. Sometimes due to movement, sometimes due to pixelization. There's a lot of problems with modern. Really, just get a glass telescope and frickin' look. Really.
Right.
So GS, when you said how long does it take to get light from? You said from the sun or just light to the Earth?
From like how long does it like because I was told that stuff way out in the universe could be like that star could have been dead like 100 years ago, and we're just now seeing the twinkle of it.
Yeah. So just so you know, it's 1.3 seconds from the moon. I just looked that up.
So I guess my question was, what was it you guys were referring to, and how close is it to the Earth? Is it something pretty far out there in order for it to be seen by everyone?
Jupiter is 5 AU from the sun. We're 1 AU. Of course, we're on an orbit.
I don't know what an AU is.
Astronomical unit. Standard.
You guys
it's
are
a
such
standard
nerds.
distance.
I just want to dunk you guys in a toilet bowl and give you a
okay.
swirly.
So we're 8 light minutes. You're the one that said people are always complaining about your vocabulary. People very, very seldom complain about mine. So we're 8 light minutes.
I don't know if I'm a
the
fart.
sun.
I don't know if I'm a fart smeller or a smart fellow. I'm trying to figure that one out still.
We'll work that out later. We'll work it out with a pencil, just like a mathematician with constipation.
I'll bring my pocket. I'll bring my pocket protector. We'll be all good. We'll be all right.
You'll be in good company. Okay, so we're 8 light minutes from the sun, the surface of the sun, right? And Jupiter is 40 light minutes. Okay?
Sure.
Does that answer it or not?
Just Hulk smash. Hulk smash.
That is not true. You are capable of much more than Hulk smash. I've heard
bam, 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 bam. There you go. There's a Flintstone reference right there.
Right on.
So Richard, the passage I'm talking about, it's Psalm 110. And
okay.
So it says here, and the Lord, as in the Father, says to my Lord, the Son,
yeah,
sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. The
Amen.
Lord will extend your mighty scepter of Zion, saying, rule in the midst of your enemies. Your troops will be willing on your day of battle, array in holy splendor. Your young men will come to you like dew from the morning womb. The
Right.
Lord, that's the Father again, has
Amen.
sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever in the
In the
order or the disposition of Melchizedek.
correct. Amen.
So that right there, right? And if you look throughout the whole Bible, you will not see another group of priests, right, that is under the name of Melchizedek
That's
or
correct.
can give out blessings or anything
That's
like
right.
that, like
So how
Melchizedek.
do you have more than one priest in the order of God?
No, that's what I'm saying. Melchizedek is a pre-begotten human form of
Wait,
Christ.
wait. A pre-begotten human form of Christ.
Yes.
Is there when at the beginning of such Christ was there a father?
So the Father, right? The Father, that name or title was not assigned yet because the role of the Father was not off. It didn't exist because the the angel of the Lord was not begotten as yet, so he did not have the title of Father from the perspective, from the two
Yes,
powers perspective.
I understand the terms father and
So
son. I get
yeah.
that.
So when Christ becomes when Christ becomes or when the angel of the Lord becomes begotten, now the roles change, right? The
This is
the
not answering what I asked you or the spirit of what
okay,
I asked you.
ask the question again.
Who existed first?
Both of them always existed.
The chicken. I mean,
Both
yeah.
of them always existed.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna have to get into a discussion about that sometime. That's gonna be a separate show, though.
Yeah, now I'd just like to point out if he's speaking about a priesthood, it's specifically there's only one high priest, and that's what Paul's explaining. We now have a high priest, the guy that goes in once a year, that one guy, but they died every year. So this Levitical priesthood, under which the law was given, David writing that psalm about Melchizedek, that was written later. So Paul says, why would he speak of a priesthood after the Levitical priesthood? So let's just be clear that the Levitical priesthood, of course, had a bunch of priests, but only one high priest, and the Melchizedek is one high priest.
Yeah, but
No, there's
that's
an
wrong. There's no
there are several
Melchizedek
priests
in.
like Melchizedek. Sorry, go ahead, Batman. It's your argument, really.
Okay, so again, there is no record of any priests that is in the order or in the line of Melchizedek. The priesthood was established by the law, right? There was no law as given when Melchizedek showed up, right? Melchizedek is also a king. He also owns a kingdom, right?
Well,
No
define all
other
four
priest.
words. Don't just say king and kingdom.
Excuse me.
Melchizedek, king of righteousness, who is the king of Salem and or Shalom and or peace. He's the
Yes.
king of peace and righteousness, having no mother, no father, and no lineage. This is a
Yes.
description of God.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying, right? If you look throughout the Old Testament, you'll see certain patterns. The bread and the wine that shows up. You'll see judgments being made and covenants being made with asking for something in return, right? when the angel of the Lord, or whether it appears in a glorified form, where that's when it tells you, hey, you have to take off your sandals because the ground you stand on is now holy, right? Or when it shows up in a human form, right? Like when it wrestled with Jacob, when it met Samson's parents, right? And various different circumstances where he shows up. They ask him his name. He does not give them their name, his name. He either says, I am your Lord, or he says, my name is too awesome for you to know it.
Those
Right.
are fair
And
translations.
he always blesses them. No priest can bless people the way this entity blesses people. He can give life. He can form people in the womb. He can multiply descendants. He receives worship. He is called the face of God. He is called the angel of God,
That's
right?
right.
So,
Well, hold on. I apologize. I don't want you to commit a fallacy.
sure.
Does the Bible say that didn't Jesus say greater things than I have done you will do?
Yes, but I believe
Yeah.
that's talking about heaven, not here on this earth.
Well, if heaven's already completed by God, why would I need to do a greater thing in heaven?
Well, I don't know why you say heaven is completed when the text says there'll be a new heaven and a new earth.
Right, but then why would I need to do greater things in heaven? Does God need my help building heaven?
Actually, yes, we will be helping build the next heaven and the new earth. You don't think angels just float around on clouds strumming harps for 10,000 years, do you?
I don't presume to know what angels do.
Yes, but obviously, if heaven is that utopia for the animal that we are perfected, and we presently have no desire to be so robotic, and we seem to get bored pretty easily, actually.
Well, do
It's
you
in
mean
our
an
nature
angel
that,
as in an angel, or an angel as in a human that's a messenger? Or before we get too far afield,
oh,
so the interesting thing for me is this: it sounds to me like God is creating a new ant farm for His Son to then be the father of that new ant farm.
yes,
Okay, all right. So I'm not far off. Okay, Roger.
yes, correct. That's why there'll be a new heaven and a new earth, and why there's already been 23 elders.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm hearing when he's saying like he'll be like a father, but a new father of a new creation.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay, Roger.
that's how he can say, I will. That's how he can say, God of my God. That's how he can say that I will give to him that overcomes as my Father gave to me. But let's propose the opposite, and the Christians are correct. Everyone is a priest and king in heaven. Everyone gets their own throne and their own crown. Everyone's in charge. Of what? Everyone's in
Exactly.
charge.
A king over who? Exactly.
King over what? You'd be a king over nobody.
And for that matter, a king and priest. Who's going to be a priest
Right.
of what?
Right. So when it says the priest and king will judge his heaven, that all means Christ. Or it's nonsense. One of the two.
Yeah,
I need
one
a
of the two.
cigarette. I got to chill out.
I'm
Did
pretty
I
sure. I'm
clarify-
pretty sure we're just like a hamburger. We're gonna go right in his mouth.
No, you're just a bun.
We're totally food, man. We're food for God. We'll abide in Him, and He'll abide
If you
in
were a
us.
food for God, what food would you be?
Oh, lasagna! You kidding me?
There's a
Hey,
woman question for you. How do you answer
Let
something
us
like
talk tomato.
God's a Guido. It'd be a lasagna. Yay! You want some lasagna? Yeah, I'll take a lasagna. That's lasagna, by the way, for the uninformed.
Hot dog.
I don't know.
That's terrible. Huh?
So there are always these like particular themes that you'll find in the Bible that could illustrate a lot of stuff for you if you grasp the concept of the theme. Like you'll see trees like the fig tree idea, right, where you have the main tree and then you have the other wild trees and them being grafted onto it and stuff like that. You'll see the husband and wife relation where God is the husband, Israel is the wife, and Jesus is the Son of Man, or the Savior. Like you'll see all of these different um, um, roles that are explained, but keep in mind that the roles are essentially just titles to the the names are just titles that explain the role, right? It doesn't necessarily, like, for example, when it says Jesus is the firstborn or Jesus is begotten, it doesn't necessarily mean that he was born.
Hmm.
When you
Well, I
look
have a
into the actual
I think he
usage,
was.
I have a
right?
question for you on that,
Oh,
Batman.
oh,
Because
let me finish.
if you
Let me
can
finish.
recognize that it's just a title to be firstborn, and then you see that he will receive the title of father, how can you recognize the one but then not recognize that the other one is just a title?
So I was actually gonna explain that.
Okay.
Too late
Um,
though. Too late though. Yeah,
right.
it's too late now. Is it just me or does heaven sound real friggin' boring?
Well, for
Yeah.
those who aren't singing,
I mean, do you have a choice?
apparently not.
Well, that sounds pretty boring to me.
My heaven is not your heaven.
Mm.
My
You
God
get the
is not your God.
hey, the world needs ditch diggers.
Yeah. Anyways,
My point is more the fact that when you imagine God and you imagine the perfect moral place, it's most likely not going to be exactly the same as mine or anybody else's here. And it's the same with God. No matter how you try to imagine God, it's never going to be the same as mine or anybody else's.
Well, there's a
Interesting.
point about that. And so, yes, we all might have our own views. Typically, we all have our own experiences, and that kind of is the outlier for each one of our own views. But it's not really our view that matters, but his, right? So, and it's not to take away from your view, because obviously you're a creation, just like I'm a creation, and he wants us to enjoy life, but with always the better view towards his view.
I don't know what heaven is going to be like or how we're going to participate or in anything or anything. That's stuff I don't really ponder, to be honest. I'm more so interested in like how to be a proper child of God. And inadvertently, when I was working on this other paper, I realized that Jesus didn't just fulfill the laws. And what is interesting is that even again, going back to Hebrews, it's pointed out that Jesus is that priest, right? The priest or Melchizedek, right? That's essentially what it says. It's just he was just explaining from from Hebrews 1 going all the way down what it all means and why Jesus would have to be a priest and why he has to be the judge and all of that stuff.
Uh-oh. Hold
But
on. Pixie said something alarming, man. I don't want that to go by without being acknowledged.
okay, go ahead.
Can you read it right there?
I got you. It says, all right, obligations and honors call. If I do not return this evening, then later days, pretty shiny peoples. Is that right?
What does that mean? Does that mean that she might not survive something, or
No, it means that
Uh,
no, that literally just means I have something else to do, like an appointment or something, and I
Oh,
have
these
to go.
freaking women and their cryptic bullshit, freaking nonsense, babble, Instagrams. I was concerned about you, Pixie. I was like, no, man, is she about to face some horrible trial? Well, good luck to you, Pixie. Sorry.
Like all
I
those flat
spurred out.
earthers that searched out the South Pole, none of them came back.
Seriously?
No, but that's what she made it sound like. Hey,
Oh,
if you don't see me, yeah.
I think if you looked up gullible, my face would be like, huh? Right there. Like I'd believe it all, dude.
I still giggle when people say happiness.
What's that?
Nice. What's that? Oh god, you guys crack me up.
No, seriously.
All right.
What is that?
But I feel bad because Richard said he had like an hour that he was going to invest in this, and we're going on almost 1 o'clock in the morning, and I feel bad ducking out because this was my request, but I'm going to listen to this offline here.
No, in all fairness, we already covered your request. We're
We
just
only-
going on.
Yeah,
Did
that's
Richard
actually
go
true.
to take a shit or something?
No, he went to smoke a cigarette. He's doing Amber Heard grumpy and smoking a cigarette at the same time,
Goodness.
allegedly in Minecraft. So yeah, no, this is all interesting. Sounds like Jesus is going to get his own ant farm. He's going to get his own magnifying glass.
He already had one. He's gonna
With-
get
with a-
another one again.
So have you ever heard my argument that to give Satan dominion over the earth is the weirdest case of affluenza known to the heavens?
When does that happen?
It's,
I mean,
it's
he's
right
the
now,
little G god of this world. What are you talking about? When does it happen? He gave it over to
according to the word.
that would be like if I owned the whole world and my son misbehaved really bad and I let him take over Australia and do whatever he wanted on Australia.
Okay, I could accept the argument that maybe he has taken dominion over the world, but it very clearly states in chapter 1 that dominion of the world is given to man.
Well, and two, it's
no,
not
he's supposed
given,
to subjugate.
but allowed.
No, and dominion. It literally says subjugate, to subdue, and have dominion over. There's both of them
Then
in
he
there.
fell and noticed he was naked. He fell later. Lost
Yeah,
it.
That's chapter 2. That's chapter 2, not what I'm talking about. Chapter 1. Only chapter 1.
But he refused his assignment. He gave
Chapter
it away.
2. That's chapter 2. That's not chapter 1.
Right. So then later on in chapter 2, he decided to go against what was his assignment. Right.
Okay, so what I'm asking for right now is you need to show me where it says God
Mhm.
himself says to Satan, you have dominion over the earth.
So it talks about enmity between the woman right there when it talks about that, right? That's where it's God is giving over, allowing it.
Okay, well, what about in the Bible where Satan tempted Jesus, saying, "If you'll just bow to me, I will give you all this."
He's allowing the temptation. That doesn't mean he's allowing dominion.
Oh,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
not-
No, it is.
Well, you asked for
Literally.
examples.
Yeah.
But that's not an example.
So
In
what
the
you're
Torah,
saying is
God
God deceived Satan into thinking that he could give away something that wasn't his,
Yeah.
or is it just that
I'm looking up
Satan himself
scripture.
is a liar?
Can someone just
Satan
find
himself is a
scripture
liar
and give
because
it to the
Satan
man?
Satan took it upon himself to do what he did. God never told Satan what to do. Not in the Bible.
And so Satan's more powerful than God.
No, he has a sense of free will, so he can choose to disobey.
Okay, well, hold on. So did the people that decided they were going to build a Tower of Babel and ascend to the heavenly bodies and unseat God.
Yes, because the
But
rest of the
he was
book
more
after
afraid of
chapter 1
Well, hold on.
is
He
all-
seemed to have been more afraid of them to scatter them and make them speak all kinds of different languages. So was that an actual legitimate fear?
But okay, so again, what does that have to do with Satan gaining dominion over the earth?
Well, you're saying that God allowed him to think that he had dominion.
No, I said God didn't stop him from tempting Eve, which I guess would be allowing it, but that doesn't suggest that he's allowing
we're
Satan
talking-
to take dominion.
We're talking when Satan tempted Jesus in the wilderness.
Oh, later on, 40 days.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd have to probably go and
I mean,
read
if
that
Jesus
stuff.
is also God, then he would have known that first off, he said it is written to each of those temptations.
But is tempting someone dominion over them or subduing them? It doesn't.
Do devils not know I mean, do you remember when Jesus stepped foot on when they went across that big body of water and Jesus stepped foot, and then the demons were like, Son of God, have you come before your time to torment us? Even they recognized he was the Son of God.
Story of Legion.
Even they recognized his dominion over them, as far as like, but knew that didn't think it was their time, meaning that evil had free reign as well, right? So the interesting thing is, like, if Jesus were being tempted by Satan and Satan recognized that Jesus was the Son of God, right? So it didn't matter how deceived Satan was with his own deceptions. He would have known that Jesus would have seen through it. But yet, how could he offer him the world if the world wasn't his to offer?
Because he lies all the time. He's the king of lies. Of
Well,
course,
then
he would say he would give you something that he doesn't own. That is the whole thing of lying.
So
dude. Come on.
what was Jesus's response to the temptation of giving him the whole world if he would just bow down and worship?
All I can really remember is he read from scripture or something. He just spurted God.
Said it is written. I'm gonna look it up.
It is written.
Yeah, and I got you right here with the part about enmity. So in chapter 3, in verse 15, this is how it reads in mine. It says, "And I, speaking of God, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will crush your head, and you will strike him in the heel."
You'll bruise the heel. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
now,
So how you? Yeah.
Hold on.
Okay.
I got you. It says, "And I will put enmity between you and the woman." Now, he says, "I will put enmity between you and the woman." Now, how does he do that? That is him allowing dominion over. Allowing Satan to have dominion over the earth. Therefore,
no. That would only be over Adam and Eve.
That's actually a description of how Christ is going to redeem us.
Before you jump to it, let me explain it. Between you and the woman, between your offspring and her offspring, right? You see there's a couple of offsprings there. Now, where do the offspring of the woman live? Here on the earth. How else would Satan have enmity between his offspring and the woman's offspring unless he had dominion on the earth? It just
I've stands all I could stands, and I can't stands no more.
First of all, the Nephilim were imprisoned for this, so they were not given dominion over the earth. Second of all, creating enmity between Adam and Eve is a very long stretch to say that Satan now has dominion over the earth. Dominion is governance and sovereignty.
One at a time.
Yeah, Nephilim and Satan are two different whole.
I think I missed half of what Theo said. Theo, would you start that thought over, please?
Okay, so the idea is that Satan was somehow given dominion over the earth by God, and his argument is that because there is enmity put by God in between man and woman and their children, that force somehow gives Satan sovereignty and governance over the earth. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Now you've moved the goalpost again.
No, I didn't. Dominion is sovereignty.
No, you've moved the goalpost twice now.
No, that's the definition of the word, bro.
No, it's not. We human beings have dominion over the earth, or at least Adam and Eve originally did. But that does not mean that we had sovereignty over the earth. God alone has sovereignty.
Dominion, meaning sovereignty or control.
Yeah, it's a bad translation. That's a bad definition. Dominion is not sovereignty.
The territory of a sovereign.
I'm going to get real fundamental on you guys. I'm going to get real fundamental on you guys, and I'm going to show you what I think is compelling evidence, real evidence, that everything that is claimed about the serpent in the Garden of Eden is true in reality, and could not have been known, was not discovered until Hubble telescope, and has nothing to do with what Christians think it does, but it is true in reality. Here's how it's true. It is above the Taurus constellation. It is literally above the cattle. In fact, it's above all the beasts of the field, that being the zodiac, the animals in the zodiac. It is above the plane of our solar system. That is also true. That it breathes, it eats dust all the days of its life. Also true. And allow me to make this singular so you can see it better. And I'm going to bring it over so I can point some things out about the Snake Nebula. Now, this is kind of a grainy picture. I didn't work very hard at finding one. You can find ones better than this. So, this is the Snake Nebula, part of the Black Horse Nebula. And where the resolution a little bit better, if you can see where my cursor is. You have an open mouth. You have an eyeball. You have two reversed ears. You have a snake-like body. You have a reverse spade tail. This is a very classic serpent in many cultures all over the planet. You probably recognize, you can probably name a few yourself. All right. This wasn't found until Hubble because it has great enmity, which is literal or figurative distance between its seed, the stars on the other side of it, and Eve's seed, us, this planet. What do you guys think of that? And let's do this rotational so it can be somewhat organized. And first person I see on the list that came in first is generally.
Oh, I just typed something in the back chat. I was going to say, thank you, panel. You guys are awesome. I appreciate your patience with my lack of understanding. I will listen in the YouTubes. Richard, you're an awesome host. Flattery. Beware the tongue of the flatterer. I'm not trying to flatter you. No, this is very fascinating. Is it close to, like, isn't, who's the archer? Is it Orion?
Orion, yeah, which is
So
just another
would the
religious
foot,
expression of Christ.
right. So would the foot be close to where the snake's head is of the belt, or not the belt of Orion? But anyway, you know what I'm saying. But this is, I've never seen anything like this. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's literally the description given in the text.
Gotcha. Yeah, I couldn't even. I don't understand it. I just don't.
What I'm saying is the author of the Bible knew about this.
It's fantastic. It's amazing. God is good. I don't know. I don't know enough to know. And listen, I don't have any reason to think you would deceive me, at all. Matter of fact, quite to the contrary. And I look forward to studying this out. I just think my brain is absolutely fried, and I've opined enough about not really even saying anything in the last 5 minutes. I ask your forgiveness again. My brain is fried, guys.
Thank you for the suggestion of a show and coming over.
It was awesome.
And suggesting to your audience that they might enjoy it as well. I appreciate all of that. And thank you for your input. And thank you for your honesty.
Yeah, I keep learning. Every time I'm here, I learn something new, man. I learn how I just don't know a damn thing most of the times. Thank you, guys. You gentlemen are awesome.
Great to see you, GS.
All right, I'll see you guys.
Later,
I'm gonna be listening on.
Night.
I'm gonna be listening on YouTube, so feel free to make fun of me. All right, we'll talk to you later.
Brick, thoughts about this?
Oh, cool.
In fact, it's not just this; it's all of the curses that work like this.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, there's some interesting stuff about the spatial divide. I'd like to call it the spatial divide. The things that we see out there in the Netherland, where I don't know where it's at, kind of looks like an S to me. But
well, you can just look up Snake Nebula and find much better resolution pictures than this. In fact, I really should.
10-4. Yeah, I'll probably do that. It's pretty cool to see the actual reference, and I'm gonna say that probably these types of things exist all throughout. You mentioned it all throughout the scriptures. and it's definitely fascinating to learn about these things.
It's really interesting that this is also carved in the Euphrates River Basin, this same image.
Oh yeah. It seems like I do remember seeing a picture that referenced that.
Yeah, if you look at Euphrates River Basin floodplain 110 to 120 feet of flooding, then you'll see this exact image.
Now, I will say this about that too. I know that the human mind, and I was going to go into this a little bit before, but the human mind does look for patterns. It's just a natural thing,
Sure.
because of our imperfect nature that we exist within. And that's my view of it. That we might do well to be cautious, because it's not just patterns that have been put there by the creator, in my view, but there's also other patterns that weren't necessarily ordained, to say the least, because there are signs, right? There are signs for us, and then there are also other signs that aren't really meant for us, and so we have to be able to decipher.
Just something to add. It's saying on Google that that Snake Nebula is visible with a standard telescope.
Okay. A standard telescope invented when?
I couldn't tell you at the moment. There's a lot of things here. It won't tell me what telescope was used to discover it.
Well, unless my memory fails, someone was tooling around with which telescope? Doppler, or pretty sure. But anyway,
Hubble.
the Hubble. But
Yeah.
Either way, certainly you wouldn't put the date of this, the finding of this, the same as the Old Testament.
Well, they didn't have telescopes, so no.
Right. Okay, fine. Okay. So it doesn't much matter what kind of telescope you can see it with. If this is the correct reading of it, it was written of well before any telescope.
Yeah, I'm just making sure we're being as accurate as possible.
I like that. I see you doing that. That's cool. So this is a better resolution picture.
Yeah, you can actually see the individuals in between. Like you can actually see the colors, the brightness of each one.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Do you see what I'm saying about the standard, almost Chinese dragon-looking head?
Oh yeah, it's a very standard S-shaped type, for a snake symbol.
Yeah, and the reverse spade tail. I mean, I don't think that this is much pareidolia on my part.
No. I mean, if this is, an accurate picture of that specific spatial divide between those stars, it's a very interesting factor.
So what's the last line of the curse?
Let me take a look. It says, he will crush your head and you will strike him in the heel.
Right. Okay. So if someone attacked you in the heel, where are they compared to you?
I mean, they're behind you.
On your throat.
No, they're below you.
They're below you or behind you, something like that, right?
Below and behind.
And then if the seed of Eve were to smash or bruise this thing's head, how could that be accomplished? I think this is where we're going next.
That's interesting.
That we literally go through the head of this. We bruise or smash its head.
Like as in Our solar system?
As in, when we leave here on heaven spaceships, this is our next destination.
Gotcha.
But there's nothing there. It's a snake made by empty space.
Well, not exactly. Like that eyeball, that's a galaxy. That tooth in its mouth, that's a galaxy. That food in its stomach, those are galaxies. And this is just some dust and gas between us and those galaxies.
Oh, that's funny. So I actually can make out when you look at the mouth, it's the mouth actually. So I see the eye, and right below the mouth, there's literally a line of dots going across.
Dude, I see nostrils and nose arches. I see an eyeball and an eye arch on the other side where you can't see the eyeball. I see reversed ears.
Right.
Backward sloped ear. I mean,
yeah.
Gosh, man.
It's a face.
I think it's super clear.
Yeah.
Them naming it the Snake Nebula was not scientists being inventive. It looks like a snake.
Well, I would like to comment on the picture you have and your Euphrates correlation, but I got to throw my 2 cents on my own beliefs. I still think it's the fertilizer that's within a man that is the most subtle beast of the earth that compels a man to actually wholly seduce a woman. But no, I like, remember how Jesus said, I saw your fall and great was your fall, that old dragon, that old serpent from whatever. This is like, to me, this picture is like when a cartoon character runs through a wall and he leaves an impression. This is like Satan falling to earth. That's the impression it left, or the serpent. And then your Euphrates River, where he landed, like on earth. This is my 2 cents.
Well, thank you for that. I want to share something close to translate the words you're talking about, Genesis 3:1.
So, can I give my perspective on this?
It is a true, yes, sir. Just a second. It is a truism that the Snake Nebula is more subtle than any part of the zodiac or beast of the field. And I want to get to the curses as well. Go ahead, sir.
So, the quote unquote curse, right? Yes, it is a curse, but it's more so a prophecy, and it's a prophecy that will take place under in the 2 comings of Christ. The first one is in the crucifixion, and the second will be when he is defeated using the sword that comes from the Alpha and the Omega's mouth and strikes him down, and he gets thrown in the lake of fire. The third part. Well, the first part, which is the resurrection, right? And then you have Revelation 12 with the woman and the dragon, right? That is a depiction of the enmity that exists between them. It's essentially a sign, but it's a visualization of that specific piece of scripture. Almost like it's basically like they took the whole thing and expanded on it and tell the full story. And then after that story is fully told and the seed is fully mature, right? He comes back and he defeats the dragon, right? The same beast that is of the earth. Also, the serpent, when I look into it, it's not an actual serpent. It's actually a Elohim, and the reason why he was more craftier was because he literally was one of the most intelligent beings ever, because he was like, I don't know, like the most respected and beautiful angel, one of the most powerful angels ever. So
Well,
he would technically be the most crafty, but
where does
him,
this,
hmm,
where does this idea of the Nakash being an Elohim come from?
you're asking me where the idea comes from? Because they're
Yeah,
not,
where'd you get that?
because
I
they're
mean,
not,
yeah,
because they're not physical. They're not physical beings. It's
No, you made
equivalent
it sound like
to
there's an actual word. You made it sound like there's an actual word in Genesis that you were translating as
no, no, no,
Elohim. Is how I took it.
no. So
Okay. Okay.
it's they. He's a spirit being, right? Kind of like I think it's in I think it's, is it in Psalms? I think it's in Psalm
Well,
where,
let me go to the actual verse and the actual word that's in the text there, and to
no,
the
no, no,
root. The
what
root.
I'm saying is that he is not a normal being. He's not an animal. He is
Well,
a
you're going to have to
created
glean
being,
that from context.
huh?
You're going to have to glean that from context.
Yeah, but you will get the full context as you go through the Bible, right?
I make
Because
that argument often myself. Yes.
yes, but so what I'm saying is that the culmination of all of that, right? It adds up to Revelation 12, right, where it fully depicts the conflict between the woman and the dragon. And the dragon is not, it's not like a regular animal, right? The woman is not a regular woman, and the child she bears is not a regular child. It is a visualization of that specific piece of passage.
Yeah, I believe so.
Now, I'm not going
Just
to dispute the fact
please,
that there's
please.
some astrological stuff that is associated with that stuff, because you do find that stuff in the Bible. Um, so I'm not going to draw any dichotomies or anything like that when it comes to that. I think
Okay.
a lot of these things, both perspectives can actually be true, right? But I'm just saying, in terms of what that passage is doing, right? It's essentially telling the future, right? What is going to happen in order for redemption to take place. A matter of fact, it started in the garden when Mary first saw Jesus, when he
Okay.
called her the woman.
Yes. Okay. All right. Theo's dying. Go ahead, Theo.
Okay, I've got to step out. I've got someone to go see. I was just going to say goodbye. Thank you for having me.
Thank
Great
you.
pleasure talking to you. Sorry, Brookkip, I was a bit of an asshole.
No, you're good.
All right,
And
man.
it's great to meet you and look forward to more conversation, bro. Thank you.
Yep.
None of you have been unreasonable.
Awesome. All right. Latest, guys.
Later.
Later. Sorry, for everyone's information, Batman's setup is such that unless you're pretty much hosting, he can't hear you talk while he's talking. So he's not being rude. He just doesn't know you're talking.
Gotcha.
Just FYI. Yeah, Theo
Yeah,
was
my
trying to
bad.
get your attention like 40 times.
Oh, my bad.
I know you don't know that. I know you
No,
don't know that. It's okay.
I was looking at a different tab.
He just had to run off and do something. That's perfectly understandable.
Okay. Anyways, that's my perspective.
I
I
mean,
don't know.
I can see that, but in order to make that connection, you have to say it's the same serpent.
Yeah, but nothing. But that's what I'm saying. The only way you'll know that is if you go through the rest of the book and see how it all connects and what it's trying to visualize. The Bible
Yeah.
tends to do that for some strange reason. Like
No, it's
even
consistent. It's not strange.
But I say strange from the perspective of being a noob, right? Like the tree of life, like in my other study. Like I now have a better understanding of what the tree of life is, not necessarily in a physical sense, but also in a spiritual sense, a familial sense, in a sense that connects with God, right? Why
Well,
it's
you've
called
said
a
some
tree.
interesting things already referring to the family. Are you aware of the Epic of Gilgamesh?
Vaguely.
Oh, too bad. Too bad. You would find that really interesting if you were. In fact, you probably would have already made the connection in what you've already said. It is a truism today that we have found non-coding genetic material first referred to as junk DNA, and now it's not junk because it's not mixed up in trash and useless. It's actually functional if it just coded, but it doesn't.
It's basically
And it is
metadata.
no. I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about the overarching folders that control other folders. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something we do not see in humankind ever.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's
It's not
metadata.
metadata. It's not metadata. It's not.
Does
It
it?
would change things in us if it were coding. Very important, interesting things like
Oh,
disease resistance and longevity.
okay,
You're talking
but
about the RNA, right?
I'm talking about the DNA that's blocked by microRNA blockers,
Right. Yep.
often
so
referred to, or at least when I was a kid, it was called junk DNA.
Yeah, it's like there's a block.
Right. It doesn't code, but we pass it on to our children.
Right.
okay, yes, it is DNA that is quote unquote it that does not code. However, it is the term junk DNA didn't necessarily mean that it was useless. They just called it because they didn't know what it was for.
I read on that. The
Yeah,
theory at the time, when I was fairly young, was that it was leftovers from evolution and no longer needed, and was a remnant, a relic, if you will.
some of it is. A matter of fact,
No, none of it is.
Yeah. All
so
life
how
is relevant.
how do you, for example, explain the necessary metadata that is internal to humans for certain viruses that we are completely immune to, even
You mean
without.
the scarring from endogenous retroviruses? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, that is metadata.
What do you mean? How do I explain it? It's there.
But that's what I'm saying. That's an example that I'm using to demonstrate my
But
point.
that's not junk DNA.
No, it's classified as junk.
Well, okay, I called them scars because there's sections that have been, I'll say, injured, I'll put it that way, and changed and are no
Yes,
longer useful. It's exactly what I'm not talking about, though. Now, what you said was
if it's
precise and
useful.
true in what you're talking about. It just happens to not be what I'm talking about.
Okay. All I'm saying is it is metadata. Metadata can do multiple things. Doesn't necessarily mean it will be used
What do you think the
or it
percentage
can
is
be used.
of the case that you're talking about? I'm talking about 23% of our genetic material. I'm sorry, 32% of our genetic material.
I'm not sure what the
The
ratio is.
endogenous retrovirus scars, I like to call them scars, and useless little bits here and there are much, much, much less than 1%. I'm talking about a huge chunk of our genetic material. We are not talking about the same thing. I promise.
So what exactly are you talking about? That because if it doesn't code, they don't. If it's not coding, right?
Yeah.
Whether that is whether it's directly or or indirectly, it's not coding for proteins or enzymes, right? It's only there. It's not there to inform enzymes or proteins on what to code and how to code, right? Then it doesn't necessarily mean that it's junk. I will agree, right? However, we really don't know like fully what all of it is for. Some of it we know, hence
What is
the
it we
example
don't
that I
know?
just gave. We don't know what all of that extra data is for. We don't know yet.
Okay, so I'm going
We
to
know
put
some
it.
of it.
I'm going to put it as a parable. Code and genome projects. Now, ENCODE is like saying, "Hey, we found this globe. Let's locate all the different countries." But then ENCODE said, "Hey, let's find every car in every garage." It's like that. There are no sections of the human genome we don't know what it does.
Well, here's another one for you. So an instruction booklet, right, for putting a piece of furniture together, right? So you've got all the instructions inside of the pamphlet, right? But on the outside cover, you've got the title. The title's not useless, right? It's got a purpose. Then you've got the copyright page. That's got a purpose. But there's some writing in there that you might not know or even care to look at and find out what the purpose is.
Okay, I'm
Right?
going to take that analogy and expound on it because it's a pretty good analogy.
Cool.
What I'm saying is that within the human genome, you get instructions for putting the closet together, the armoire together, right? And we all know that, and we look at each other and we see these armoires, right? But in the back of the book, that no one has ever seen a human look like this, is how to reconfigure it into, I don't know, a couch.
Okay.
And I'm really not pulling your leg here.
All right.
I know that
So
sounds a little bit fantastic, but within the non-coding parts is human negligible aging. In other words, eternality.
Right.
So you are referring to the degradation of the telomeric caps on our chromosome.
Yes. Well,
Yes.
that's
You
what
didn't
we
just say
call
that, bro.
aging.
What?
That's
I mean, I
that's what
know
we
that.
that's what we
Yes.
call aging.
The aging process.
But you do understand that if we had no maintenance of it, we'd be dead in about 18 months of old age.
I mean, I know that, but there's so many factors that go into
So
it.
we do maintain it. We do maintain it poorly.
I'm sorry, Richard.
None, your connection's not very good. Could you say that again with your face closer to the mic?
Yeah, is he I forgot it. Doggone it. I'm trying to walk here.
When it comes back to you, just speak up. Make sure your mic's close to your face. What'd you say, Batman?
Oh no. I wasn't disagreeing. I was just saying you should have just, I don't know, just say that. You need to get to go through all that other shit.
Always
Well,
easier.
I'm sorry, my brain works as it does. There's nothing I can do about that. Look, there are 30 eternal animals already on this planet, including a mammal. There's a whale that negligibly ages. It essentially doesn't get old.
Right. Which begs the question, why do we age so quickly?
Because we were made lower than angels. That word made right there means transformed or changed. Bara. We are bara, lower than angels.
So, Richard, this
Yes.
actually brings up some other side project that
So,
I
but I
was
want to get,
working
yeah, I
on.
know, and there's a million of them. We'll never get done before we get off the planet. God's coming first before we get done with all this. But the reason I brought all of this up to you, Batman, is because you were talking about you were talking about, I can't remember exactly how you said it. You forgive me, please. Okay, so I think the actual answer, what the text you're referring to is talking about, is that the promises of the kingdom of God are already in us, that we could be living forever disease proof if all the genetics were coding, that the tree of life it's the same as the genetic, you could call them thistles, in the structure of how the double helix is actually constructed, is somewhat tree-like, actually. And that when it's talking about the tree of eternal life or fountain of youth or Gilgamesh diving down into the waters or people and finding the tree of life, which was stolen away by a snake, oh my gosh, this should sound familiar to everyone here, is talking about our unrealized genetic potential.
So there is a. Are you gonna say something, Biz?
Yeah, so there, I'm really not into this, whatever, but from what I'm getting from just like reading what you guys are saying, there's a thing, that the longevity thing. But at the very beginning, Batman was speaking about, I know you're talking apples and oranges at the beginning, but he talked about, yes, these junk things are blocked. I'm just getting at, is this blocking the sword, the flaming sword in all directions, that we can't get to this tree of life? I think Richard was kind of getting in that direction. Yeah, that was my question. If this gene is actually the tree of life that he's describing Gilgamesh, right?
You know,
Are these blockers of this junk DNA the flaming sword in all directions?
oh, the flaming sword in all directions. Oh, it's actually interesting.
Before you do that, just because you tried to answer, but I do have an answer for Mac the Human. Yes, we just can't fly with them.
That's interesting. And you may be right. There are winged mammals.
Back to Nanya.
To answer the question, so to speak, I'm gonna approach it as a question. So there's two aspects to it. There is a actual physical tree, and there is a spiritual / familial tree that you will see in the Bible and even in the Book of Enoch, DLC content, right? And the concept of being grafted to the tree, what you will find is that there is, in the depiction of Eden, of the tree again, what you'll find is that there is a flowing of living waters that is fertilizing the tree of life so it can bear fruit, and the fruit that you eat will give you eternal life, right? As in, it'll give you a perfect body, right? You will not age, and stuff like that. You won't get sick and hungry. Like, you'll be perfected, right? You'll be in
Well, it
God's
says
presence
waters, but
without
yes.
suffering. Now, what you'll find throughout the Bible as it relates to the Holy Spirit, that's another project I'm working on, is it is typically associated and visualized as two things: water and a bird. What's the term? When a bird is like nestling over their eggs,
Clutch?
fluttering, clutching. Yes, you'll see a lot of that depiction throughout the Bible, and this is
Yes.
where you make the connection, for example, as to why baptism in the Holy Spirit is included because the Holy Spirit is supposed to be the water that will fertilize the seed that has been planted in you so you can become a tree, right? And then once you become a tree, in a spiritual sense, now you will be grafted onto the main tree, right? And when you're grafted onto the main tree, then you will get a new perfected body in the when your name is spoken in the book of
Book of
life, and you are
Life.
in the new creation, basically, of heaven and earth.
Okay, then follow out your logic and see that you would be producing the same waters.
Yeah, everyone has the waters. The waters is essentially life. But the body that contains it is not it is not optimal to maintain it for forever, so to speak. And the idea is that when you become a part of the family tree, right, you will gain your life will get a body that is equivalent to what your life force actually is. So this is why in certain depictions you'll always see the water running from like the throne of God, right? That is the Holy Spirit, and you see it's running through the under the tree of life. You will see depictions in the Old Testament where it says the Spirit of God, and the waters that come from it will fertilize the ground, and it will like create a garden and
Right, which is the
stuff like
beginning of
that.
the Bible.
Yeah, it doesn't just happen in the beginning. It happens throughout the Old Testament quite a few times,
Yes.
surprisingly. Um, so essentially, the goal is to graft all humans onto the main tree, so we'll all be in God and have perfected bodies and be in the semi-hive mind. I just threw that part in, but but I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
You're fine.
Um,
You're fine.
um,
Nunya, say it again with the mic closer.
You're fine. You're fine.
okay. Um, so yes, we are
Wait,
essentially.
I have to recognize something about you gentlemen and this conversation. This is the highest singular viewer count I have ever seen on this channel, which means I owe you thanks. So thank you.
Very cool. Very cool.
I'm waving like Biz, by the way. You're welcome. Make sure they like the
Oh, I'm
video.
sorry. I'm dying laughing over here. Sorry, brothers. Carry on. Carry on.
I feel important.
Well, you should put on a suit because if you're
Right.
gonna feel impotent, you should look impotent.
I have a tie now.
All right now.
So Richard,
Nope, we're
it
wrapping it up. We're not going to start a whole new other thing. Finish up that idea.
yeah the idea is finished, but I once I discovered this, I
Yes.
started working on redefining life because the current
What's your new definition of life, or do you think you have one yet?
Hold on, repeat that.
What's your new definition of life, or are you ready to espouse one?
Oh, okay. So I do have a working definition. For now, it's not complete, but what I have so far is it says a teleological grouping of parts made up of matter that work together to perform one or more tasks to achieve a goal or goals.
Did you say
But that's
theological or
essentially a
theological?
biological machine. Go ahead, Nunya. Sorry.
Did you say theological or theological or biological? Now that Richard chimed
Tel-
in.
teleological.
The- okay.
Te- yeah,
Yes,
teleological.
teleological. Yes.
What's
I'm one of
Telia?
them Harvard words.
What's Telia?
So
Because
teleological, you have two words, right? You have teleological and teleonomical. Teleonomical, it's basically something that's made up of a bunch of parts that can do stuff, but they don't have a specific goal. They're not working towards a specific goal. They're just like, for example, like a crystal that would like continuously like multiplying, right? It's not doing it towards this to achieve a specific goal, where something that is teleological, the grouping of the parts are actually working towards a specific goal, whether it's like, creating a specific pattern all the time, or um, as kind of like a loose example, or maintaining its own existence, or makeup.
So I just wanted to read a chat real quick because generally specific, he said something about me, and I just want to make sure that I read it so that everybody knows. It says, for me, you are welcome, and he says that I am the most handsome and humble man ever. So you're welcome.
Yes, obviously about you, Brick. Obviously. Yeah. So essentially the difference there is like saying there is vulcanized rubber and I'm making car tires.
Wait, what?
Teleonomical and teleological.
I get it. Yep.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
I would say crystals are teleological. You know what I mean? Yeah, because you would they're doing that for us. Haven't you ever looked at a quartz or a window crystallizing? You're amazed at it, and that's what they do it for us, our enjoyment.
Yeah, no, those are teleonomical, mainly because they're not. So I kind of expanded on the definition. So the core goal of life is to increase or maintain a high energy state by maximizing the usage of the production of entropy that exists around or a part of it.
Yeah, I think you're
So
going to get bored.
By
Maximizing
introduction.
your entropy, you're going to get bored. Your goal, you're going to hit your goal every time, and you're going to be like, oh, yawn. This ties in with my closing statement. I think the Garden of Eden, they were kids. I think in the resurrection, we're going to be kids. That's why there's not going to be any marriage. We're not going to care about sex, but we're going to grow old, and we can drink from the water that has the trees growing on either side of it for the healing of the nations. We can freely drink of that water to be young again. And maybe if you drink a little, you go back to when you were 15. If you drink a lot, maybe you go back to when you were 5. But I tell you what, the guy that said heaven is boring, if you're a kid, you got dirt, you're happy. You're happy. We can do anything. As a kid, a boy running around the earth with he's going to live forever. He can jump off cliffs. He can do. I could have fun forever. But yeah, blessings, y'all.
You're a really romantic guy, Nunya.
right? Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, Brick, final thoughts.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah, I like to make up words all the time too. Here's one. Tetrahexagonal.
I don't
Just
know.
let
That sounds like a real thing.
Yeah, it's a real thing, but that's because it's a shape that I made up. That you can make up shapes. You just add another shape to the shape, and it turns into another shape. So, but that
Women
one,
call that recipes, and you can change it just a little bit, and then it's their own recipe.
right. Just it's like a numbers game. It's the shape of the Earth, tetrahexagonal. So it's a 4-sided, 8-sided, 12-sided shape. But I really enjoyed everything. The conversation we came up for, it was really nice. It's good to discover different viewpoints, and what is actual, what is factual, what is base. We hope that we may know. For now, if I'm not part of the 144,000, I certainly hope I'm part of at least the great multitude. Because
I would think you'll be part of the first resurrection myself. That's what I think.
yeah, that class of people that will probably be in the physical form, whether it's, I don't know, it says New Earth. I got to imagine it's not this planet. not
Yeah,
here.
yeah. If you look into the word new there, it's not refresh.
Yeah, that's an interesting
Yeah,
point,
but
and
don't
maybe a
forget the
topic for.
second set of 10 commandments were exactly the same as the first 10. Don't forget that part. Just saying,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, by the
Cer-
way, in multiple Earth theory, it's very easy to justify the differences between the Gospels. Can you see why?
Um, yes, absolutely.
Like,
Because,
what if all of
well,
them are perfectly accurate and just talking about 4 different ends?
wasn't it Peter who also mentioned a new earth?
Well, yeah. I could just go on and on and on
Mm-hmm.
quoting different parts of the text about this. I could.
So certainly
I
another
try to
topic.
keep it brief.
I mean, the
All
no
right,
sun
guys.
part is clear. The no sun is very clear. I heard you.
Great show tonight.
The no sun. What's that?
Well, the new heaven and the new earth, you can just describe many different people describe in many different ways, but don't forget, there's no sun. You will be lit by God or warmed by God or something like that.
Right. Artificial lighting. That's what I think there
Yeah.
is in heaven. Yeah.
Mhm.
By whatever powerful means. All right, guys. Thank you all for showing up. If you would please pet the algorithm before you go, I'd appreciate it. And very soon we'll be arranging to have an entirely different channel on my channel. That's right. I met people that speak English and I don't have to dumb down my sentence structure. So I thought you guys are going to love these guys. So I invited the whole channel. There you go. That's going to be happening soon. Peace and respect to you all. Until next time, I look forward to the day that we're all great, great friends in heaven as brothers and sisters in equality, real equality.